Let's count down our top 25 Star Wars TVC figures for March Madness 2025. Villa Varykino. If it's Star Wars, we collect it. Hello there. Thanks for visiting Villa Varykino. I'm Kristy.
And I'm Matt. Together, we've been collecting Star Wars action figures for a combined total of nearly 70 years, and the 3.75-inch line is at the heart of our collection. As we are based in New Zealand, collecting every figure ever made has its challenges, but we are always on a quest to add as many as we can to our Star Wars action figure display.
Now, of course, every collector has a wish list of figures to track down and figures they wish Hasbro would make. The Vintage Collection March Madness Tournament is an online fan initiative to find the top 25 character figures most wanted by collectors all around the world. March Madness has been running for a few years now, started and organised by the crew at SWTVC on Instagram.
Fans submit their ranked top 25 character wish lists, which are collated for a showdown to find the most wanted figures for the TVC 3.75-inch line. We'll put information and links in our description for anyone wanting to join in and submit their list.
For our top 25, we chose based on a few criteria. We focused on named characters rather than army builders or background characters, and emphasized characters that have never been produced in the 3.75-inch scale in any era. We had a lot of fun putting together our list. It actually took us a few days, and it was quite hard to narrow down to a top 25, so we'll also talk a little bit about honourable mentions as well.
We'll start with number 25 and count down in reverse order to our number 1 choice. Number 25, Luthen Rail from the Andor live action series. Now, Luthen's been done in the 6-inch scale, but not the Vintage Collection 3.75-inch scale yet, which is a shame because he is obviously a very core character to the whole storyline. In fact, they will take him in any version of his outfits.
With Luthen appearing in Andor Season 2 coming out in a few months, I'm really hoping that Hasbro might even launch straight into a Season 2 look for Luthen's debut in the Vintage Collection line. Number 24, Maarva Andor. While of course she has different outfits, we see her in a younger flashback. Maarva is such an important character to Cassian's storytelling in the Andor series. Of course, we won't see her in Series 2, and I know she's not an action character with weapons, but she is so important in this storytelling. I really want to add her to my action figure collection for the Andor series.
Number 23, Cyril Khan. Cyril is also from the Andor series, another character that we think played a very important role that's not yet represented in action figure format. He did wear a few different outfits, but one of the first outfits that he wore was his security officer uniform, which has quite a lot of nice detailing on it that I think would translate well into action figure format. Number 22, Royce Hemlock from The Bad Batch. Now, we will be talking about a few Bad Batch characters, of course, along the way, but Royce Hemlock, who was featured particularly strongly in Season 3, was a key protagonist, and I think he fits in very well with the storyline if we're going to be getting more Bad Batch key characters, main characters down the line.
Number 21, Emery Carr, also from The Bad Batch. I thought this was a fascinating character. I really enjoyed her story arc in Season 3 of The Bad Batch. And on a personal note, I really enjoyed seeing that she was voiced by fellow Kiwi girl, Keisha Castle-Hughes, who of course played Queen Apilana in Episode 3. Emery would work really well alongside Royce Hemlock for an action figure display.
Number 20, Wrecker, also from The Bad Batch. Now, we love Wrecker, but we also do, of course, love all of Bad Batch, so Wrecker is kind of filling in here as a proxy for all of the Bad Batch that we want represented in action figure format. We've got Hunter so far, but we'd like the rest of Clone Force 99 filled out, and we'd be very happy to start with Wrecker in particular.
Of course, Clone Force 99 have a couple of variations with their outfits across the 3 seasons of The Bad Batch, but as a first, I really want to have all of the characters in their Clone Force 99 original Season 1 outfits. Number 19, the second sister Inquisitor from the video game Jedi Fallen Order. I love the design of the Inquisitors, and I do own the second sister in the Black Series 6-inch line, so I really want to add her to my 3.75-inch gaming greats collection. Number 18, Bazine Natal. She is the First Order spy from The Force Awakens. She is essentially the Grindan from the sequel trilogy. I love her design. She was featured quite heavily in some pre-film release advertising material, but sadly she doesn't really feature much in merchandising, and I think she would look really fun with her black and white outfit. I really want a 3.75-inch figure of Bazine to add to to my collection.
Number 17, Carson Teva. Now, Carson's shown up in his X-Wing pilot outfit in a couple of live-action series, The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. It's quite fun that he's always popping up around the Mandoverse, and he has quite significant roles, actually, quite a lot of dialogue. And personally, I'm a big fan of X-Wing pilots, so I'd very much like to see Carson represented in the 3.75-inch line.
Number 16, Kira. So, of course, we do have actually a couple of 3.75-inch action figures of Kira, but they tend to be when she is younger, not when she is fully a member of Crimson Dawn. Now, in terms of which outfit I personally would love to see, it's kind of a toss-up between her black glamorous dress as we see on Dryden Voss's yacht in the movie Solo, or in her gorgeous Crimson Dawn outfit from the War of the Bounty Hunters comics. I would love to see Hasbro do a few comic characters, and I think fans would already be familiar with Kira from the Solo movie, so I think this would be a really fun variation on her outfits, and I think it's really fun to see her being more powerful within Crimson Dawn.
Number 15, Ben Solo, as seen on Exegol in The Rise of Skywalker. Now, we have a few versions of Kylo Ren in the Vintage Collection line, but we don't actually have any head sculpts of Adam Driver yet. We still have a few gaps in terms of characters from The Rise of Skywalker that we'd personally like to see filled out, and the closing scenes, of course, are pivotal conflicts with a lot of action and a lot of intrigue. We'd very much like to see Ben Solo added.
Number 14, Padme Amidala, specifically her Lake Retreat arrival gown from Attack of the Clones. We do have quite a few figures of Padme Amidala. She's well represented across the 3.75-inch line, but I am particularly fond of the lake dress because I actually made this, and this is a fan favorite costume that is just not represented across any merchandising line. It's very hard to find any officially licensed merchandise featuring one of Padme's most iconic dresses. I know it's not an action outfit, but we do actually have Padme in her wedding dress in action figure form, so I would love to add the lake dress in action figure form to my Padme collection. Number 13, Omega from the Bad Batch. So, of course, the note here is pretty much the same as Wrecker that we mentioned earlier. We need more figures from the Bad Batch. But on a personal note, I am a big fan of Omega. I love her character, and she is voiced by a Kiwi actress, Michelle Ang. Omega has quite a few outfits in the show, so I don't really mind which one Hasbro would make first, and I would love to also someday be able to put her in action figure form alongside her adorable animal companion Batcher.
Number 12, Admiral Raddus from Rogue One. This Mon Calamari rebel leader plays a key role in the Battle of Scarif, so he's an important character in terms of storytelling, but I'm also a big fan of the Mon Calamari as a species, and I think we could do with quite a few more Mon Calamari lined up in our display.
Number 11, Sith Eternal Emperor Palpatine from The Rise of Skywalker. So of course we all own a few Palpatine figures by now, but he has quite a unique appearance in the sequel trilogy. I know it might be complicated to execute this one in action figure form, as he is usually suspended with lots of medical contraptions and wires behind him, but I think he's so important to The Rise of Skywalker, I really want to have him in action figure form.
Number 10, Dryden Voss from Solo, A Star Wars Story. Now, Dryden qualifies mainly because he's such an important character that's currently missing from the lineup, but I think there's some really fun opportunities here. We think he would work really well if he had swappable heads, showing off his unique face markings.
Number 9, Garsa Fwip, as seen in the Book of Boba Fett. She was a really cool character who sadly didn't get as much screen time as I kind of wish that she did, but she has really ornate costumes that I think would translate really well into action figure form. Although she isn't an action character with weapons, I do really like her character, and I think she's important to the Book of Boba Fett, and I really want to build out my display for that series.
Number 8, Kino Loy from the Andor live action series. Now, although Kino Loy's Narkina 5 prison outfit's fairly plain on the surface, I think will actually look quite smart in action figure format, particularly in contrast to a lot of the other characters we have currently in the Andor lineup with either a military or outdoor survival appearance. Frankly, I wouldn't actually mind having more than one character in that Narkina 5 prison outfit as a little bit of an army builder set. Number 7, Kao Sindarik, the Zabrak Jedi from the Star Wars The Old Republic cinematic trailer. I'd really like to see this inclusion because in part, he kind of represents all of the Jedi from the Old Republic. He has a very cool appearance that mixes both armor and Jedi robes. And the fact that he has unique light side Zabrak facial markings means that I think he'll be quite a distinct and unique figure.
Number 6, Leia Organa, the young version from Obi-Wan Kenobi. It is still surprising that we don't yet have young Leia in action figure form, as we do have quite a few figures from the series already. She was so central, and while I know Disney was obviously trying to keep young Leia's appearance in the series a secret, the series has been out for a while now, so I don't see any reason why Hasbro can't make her in figure form, considering we have her in other collectible formats already. Number 5, Leia Organa in her Jedi training outfit from The Rise of Skywalker. So again, we do have quite a few versions of Princess Leia in action figure form, but this is one of the rare occasions where Leia actually has a lightsaber as seen on screen. It was such an emotional scene, of course, because by the time this film had come out, Carrie Fisher had sadly passed away, and it was really exciting and a little bit emotional to see Leia finally wield a lightsaber on screen, so I really want this moment in my action figure collection.
Would ultimately be quite keen to see both Leia and Luke in their Jedi training outfits from that flashback scene, but we'd be very happy to start off with Leia as a beginning point.
Number 4, Visas Mar, as she appears in the video game Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords. When it comes to KOTOR 2, most merchandising centers around Darth Nihilus, but Visas Mar is quite a well-known character from the game, and she sadly lacks much in the way of official merchandising. She has a really striking and recognizable outfit that I think would translate really well into action figure form, and while of course I do want an updated TVC version of Darth Nihilus, there is already an older action figure, so I think Visas Mar really deserves to be appearing in the Vintage Collection line.
Just as a side note, Visas Mar has some very unique and detailed printing on her robes, but I think we're at a point in the action figure printing technology where I think that this can be produced very tidily. Number 3, Peli Motto from both The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. I think it's fair to say that Peli is a fan favourite who is sadly missing from the lineup from both of these series in action figure format. Although this character doesn't make use of weapons, she could very much be packed in with a couple of cool pit droids, and I think a lot of fans would be happy to be able to add her to both their Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian lineups. Number 2, Kelleran Beck from the Book of Boba Fett. Kelleran is of course the Jedi played by Ahmed Best, who rescues Grogu from the Jedi Temple as it is being besieged by clone troopers during Order 66. He is both a key character and a fan favourite. The character is seen on screen with 2 lightsabers, so I think we've got some really cool opportunities to turn him into an interesting action figure here.
Number 1, Satele Shan, as she appears in the cinematic trailers for the video game Star Wars The Old Republic. Now, of course, the trailers for SWTOR heavily featured Darth Malgus, and he has been made quite a few times from just about every Star Wars collectible manufacturer, including Funko, Sideshow, Hot Toys, Gentle Giant. But Satele Shan is sadly lacking. There is very little merchandise that exists anywhere of this key character. She was featured heavily in both the trailers and the video game itself, and she does have a few different outfits, but personally I would love to see a 3.75-inch figure of her appearance for the cinematic trailers, so I can finally put her on my shelf alongside Darth Malgus to somewhat recreate that iconic fight in those cinematic trailers. She's a really cool character. She's a long-standing Star Wars character in the game. I really want her in action figure form, and specifically in the Vintage Collection because of the details on both her costume and her intricately carved lightsaber. I think only the Vintage Collection with the high articulation and photorealistic digital printing would do this character justice.
Not to mention the fact that the articulation level of the Vintage Collection is critical in order to be able to represent her very acrobatic fighting style that we see in the cinematic trailer.
So that was our top 25 list. Let's quickly go over a few honourable mentions, starting off with the Skeleton Crew. Of course, this series is still airing, so I'm cautiously optimistic that more figures from this line are in the pipeline, and I'm hoping to be able to add more alongside Jod Narnawid later this year. As previously mentioned, we are big fans of Star Wars The Old Republic, and there are so many other major characters I would love to see in action figure form, most notably Darth Mar, Lana Beniko, Theron Shan, and of course one of my personal favourites, Valkorion, and perhaps even as a 3-pack in his 3 Sith forms of Valkorion, Vitiate, and Tenebrae. And as well, kind of connected to SWTOR is my love of Knights of the Old Republic. There are so many major characters, both companions and NPCs from KOTOR 1 and 2 that are sadly lacking in any merchandising, so I would love to have them in action figure form as well.
It goes without saying that there are many fans alongside us that want to see the Bad Batch lineup fully completed in the Vintage Collection line. complete the 99.
As a Kiwi Star Wars fan, on a personal note, there are a couple of characters portrayed by Kiwi actresses that I would love to see in action figure form, most notably Queen Apilana from Episode 3 as played by Keishel Castle Hughes, and also Brea Organa from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series played by Simone Kessel.
Many of the Rogue One characters have been released in the 3.75 line, but only with 5 points of articulation. We'd very much like to see all of the Rogue One team in the Vintage Collection line, and very much related to that, there are still quite a few gaps in terms of characters from Season 1 of Andor. With Season 2 on the horizon, we hope to see quite a few interesting characters from the upcoming season, but we'd also very much like Hasbro to go back and give us a few more from the lineup of Season 1.
Speaking of Season 1 characters, The Mandalorian Series 1 has 2 major characters that are sadly lacking in action figure form. That is, of course, the Client and Dr. Pershing. I really want to be able to add these to really round out my Mandalorian Series figure collection.
So those were our top 25 wishlist characters for the Vintage Collection line. How many of our picks were in your list as well? Let us know in the comments below. It was really fun to take a look at the gaps in our collection that we would love to fill. And we can't wait to see the final results of the TVC March Madness 2025 in a couple of months. While March Madness isn't officially connected to Hasbro, we know that they do take notice, so it'll be fun to see how many figures from the final top 25 are announced as pipeline reveals over the coming year.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. We hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon or evening, wherever you are in the galaxy, and let's hang out again very soon for more Star Wars fun. May the Force be with you. If you like light-hearted Star Wars collectible lists, we recently counted down our top 10 favorite Star Wars collectibles from 2024. That video is linked here in case you haven't already seen it, as well as a whole vintage collection unboxing playlist. This is the way.